11.9 goes over factoring when you have a coefficient of that x squared. So when we're doing these, there's a couple of steps that we're going to take. First thing is we're going to look at that trinomial, if we do have a trinomial. We're going to see if we can factor the greatest common factor out from all three of those terms. If we can, that's how we're going to start. From there, if you have an a that is something other than 1, so a coefficient of that x squared other than 1, you're going to multiply your first and your last term, your a term, by your c term. You will then find the factors of that add up to be your b term. You will replace your b term with those factors, and then you will have a polynomial with 4 terms, and you will factor by grouping. If we look at example 1, we have 4x squared plus 26x plus 42. First thing that we look at is if we have a greatest common factor. All three of these numbers are even, so they are divisible by 2. So start by factoring out a 2. So we're going to divide each of these terms by 2. This is going to leave us with 2 times 2x squared plus 13x plus 21. From here, we're going to multiply your a and your c term. That's the 2 and the 21. 2 times 21 gives us a positive 42. We want to find the factors of 42 that are going to add up to be 13. 42 is 1 and 42, 2 and 21. 3 goes in, 3 goes into 4 one time with 1 left over, 3 goes into 12 4 times, so that's 14. 4 does not go into it evenly, 5 does not go into it evenly, 6 goes in 7 times. If you added the 6 and the 7, that gives you the 13 that you're looking for. So we are going to replace that 13x with the 6x plus 7x. So this is going to give us 2 times 2x squared plus 6x plus 7x plus 21. Because we have 4 terms now within those parentheses, we're going to factor by grouping. Put a set of parentheses around the first 2 terms, put a set of parentheses around the last 2 terms. Factor out your greatest common factor from each set of parentheses. Between the 2x squared and the 6x, we can factor out a 2x. Between the 7x and the 21, we can factor out a 7. This is going to leave us with 2 times 2x times x plus 3 plus 7 times x plus 3. From here, your 2 parentheses are identical to one another, so you form a set of parentheses with the x plus 3, only one time. Then you form another set of parentheses with what you factored out, so that 2x and that positive 7. So we have 2 times x plus 3 times 2x plus 7. If we look at example 2, we have 14x squared minus 17x plus 5. For this one, your coefficients and your constant are 14, negative 7, and 5. These terms do not share a common factor other than 1. So multiply the 14 times the 5, it gives us 70. We want the factors of positive 70 that add up to be negative 17. Well, we know that if a negative 7 times negative 10 gives us a positive 70, when we combine them, it gives us a negative 17, which is what we're looking for. So we are going to rewrite this as 14x squared minus 7x minus 10x plus 5. We have 4 terms now, so factor by grouping. Between the first 2 terms, we can factor out a 7x. Between the last 2 terms, that first term there is negative. The first term in our first set of parentheses is positive. So that tells us automatically factor out a negative from these 2. Their greatest common factor is 5, so we're factoring out a negative 5. So this is going to give us 7x times 2x minus 1 minus 5 times 2x minus 1. The 2 sets of parentheses that you have are identical to one another, so we're going to rewrite it one time and form another set of parentheses with the 7x and the minus 5. So we just have 2x minus 1 times 7x minus 5. Our next example, example 3, we have 4x squared plus 8x plus 3. So again, we cannot factor out a greatest common factor from these. So we're going to multiply the 4 times the 3. It gives us positive 12. You want the factors of 12, that add up to be 8. If we had 2 and 6, that would give us 8. So this factors out, or this expands to be 4x squared plus 2x plus 6x plus 3. Since we have 4 terms, we're going to factor by grouping. With the first set of parentheses, we factor out a 2x. Second set of parentheses, we factor out a 3. So this factors to be 2x times 2x plus 1 plus 3 times 2x plus 1. Your two sets of parentheses are identical to one another, so we're going to rewrite it one time. So we have 2x plus 1. Then we form another with the 2x and the positive 3 to give us 2x plus 1 times 2x plus 3. For example 4, we have 3x squared plus 5x plus 2. Again, we cannot factor out a greatest common factor here, so we're going to do 3 times 2. It gives us 6. We're going to find the factors of 6 that add up to be 5. That's 2 and 3. So this expands to be 3x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 2. We factor by grouping. We factor out an x from the first set of parentheses and a positive 1 from the second. So it's going to be x times 3x plus 2 plus 1 times 3x plus 2. Our parentheses are the same, so we're going to write it as 3x plus 2 times x plus 1. For example 5, we have 6x squared plus 7x plus 2. For this one, we're going to take the 6 and the 2 and multiply them. It gives us 12. We find the factors of 12 that add up to be the 7x. So we're going to have a 3 and a 4. So we're going to expand this to be 6x squared plus 3x plus 4x plus 2. We're going to factor by grouping. For the first set of parentheses, we factor out a 3x. Second, we factor out a 2. So this is 3x times 2x plus 1 plus 2 times 2x plus 1. Our two parentheses are identical, so we just have 2x plus 1 times 3x plus 2. For the next part in our lesson, we're going to be working where that c term is negative. So if we look at example 6, we have 6x squared minus 21x minus 45. When we look at this, we see that all three of those terms are divisible by 3. So we're first going to factor out a 3 from each of these. So we're going to have 3 times 2x squared minus 7x minus 15. From here, we're going to multiply the 2 times the negative 15. That gives us negative 30. We're going to find the factors of that negative 30 that add up to be negative 7. If we just look at the positive factors, we have 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. We're working with opposites here because we're getting a negative when we multiply. If the 10 is negative and the 3 is positive, it's going to give us the negative 7 that we're looking for. So we're just going to expand this as 3 times 2x squared plus 3x minus 10x minus 15. We have 4 terms inside those brackets, so we're going to factor by grouping. The first set of parentheses, we factor out an x. Second set, we factor out a negative 5. So this becomes 3 times x times 2x plus 3 minus 5 times 2x plus 3. Your two parentheses are identical to one another, so this becomes 3 times 2x plus 3 times x minus 5. For example 7, we have 20x squared minus 40x minus 25. Again, we're going to start this by factoring out the greatest common factor. In this case, it is a 5. So we have 5 times 4x squared minus 8x minus 5. We can multiply the 4 times the negative 5. We get negative 20. The factors of negative 20 that add up to be negative 8 are 2 and negative 10. So this expands to be 5 times 4x squared plus 2x minus 10x minus 5. We factor by grouping. From the first set of parentheses, we factor out a 2x. From the second, we factor out a negative 5. So this just becomes 5 times 2x times 2x plus 1 minus 5 times 2x plus 1. Check your two sets of parentheses. They are the same. So this gives us 5 times 2x plus 1 times 2x minus 5. For example 8, we have 2x squared plus 7x minus 9. So for this one, we start it by multiplying the 2 times the negative 9. We get negative 18. The factors of negative 18 that add up to be a positive 7 are a negative 2 and a positive 9. We expand this to be 2x squared minus 2x plus 9x minus 9. We group the first two terms. We group the last two terms. From the first two terms, we factor out a 2x. From the last two terms, we factor out a 9. So this gives us 2x times x minus 1 plus 9 times x minus 1. Your two parentheses are identical, so that's just x minus 1 times 2x plus 9. For next example 9, we have 10 plus 11x minus 6x squared. Now I'm just going to rewrite this to where my x squared comes first, and it's in standard form. So it gives us negative 6x squared plus 11x plus 10. I don't want to work with that negative that's out front of that 6. So I'm going to factor out a negative 1 to start with. This is going to give us negative 1 times 6x squared minus 11x minus 10. We're going to multiply the 6 times the negative 10. It gives us negative 60. And we find the factors of negative 60 that add up to be a negative 11. You have 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20, 4 and 15, 5 and 12. The 4 and the 15 actually does work if the 15 is negative. It gives you the negative 11. We don't even need to go any further with this. We're going to have negative 1 times 6x squared plus 4x minus 15x minus 10. Group the first two, group the last two, factor out a 2x from the first, factor out a negative 5 from the last. This gives us negative 1 times 2x times 3x plus 2 minus 5 times 3x plus 2. Your two sets of parentheses are identical, so it's going to give us negative 1 times 3x plus 2 times 2x minus 5. For our last example, we have 5a squared minus ab minus 22b squared. For this one, we do have something that looks a little different than the last questions we've been doing. It's because we have an a and a b. With this, we're going to treat it the same exact way that we did the other. The only difference is we are going to include the a and the b when we do this. So the first thing we're going to do is multiply the first term and the last term coefficients. So 5 times negative 22 gives us negative 110. We want the factors of negative 110 that add up to be a negative 1. Well, if we had a 10 and a negative 11, that would give us a negative 1. So we're just going to expand this to be 5b squared. We're working with the ab, so it's going to be plus 10ab minus 11ab minus 22b squared. And we're going to factor by grouping. So we put parentheses around the first two terms, put parentheses around the last two terms. factor out the greatest common factor from each set of parentheses. From the first set of parentheses, we're going to factor out a 5a. This should be an a. This should be a. So 5a squared. From the second set of parentheses, we're going to factor out a negative 11b. So this gives us 5a times a plus 2b minus 11b times a plus 2b. Your two sets of parentheses are identical to one another. So we're going to write that down one time, so a plus 2b. And then we're going to form another with the 5a and the negative 11b to give us a plus 2b times 5a minus 11b.